and welcome to the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and often guests, talk about digital topics, including the world of online communications and digital inclusion, in a show which was the brainchild of digital storyteller, the late John Popham. So good to see you again, Sweyn, after a short break that we've had. How are you today, and how's the weather where you are?
Very well. The weather is lovely. It's warmish with a cool breeze and very warm in the sunshine, so that's nice.
Okay, you might notice that I haven't blurred my background this week because I read somewhere that blurring also consumes data. So
yes, it will do.
This
Yes.
is an experiment to try
see.
and make sure that people don't have to blur if they don't want to.
It's
nothing to.
It all looks good. It all looks good.
Yeah. Thank you. So we'll go on to some dates before we go on to the main stories. And one we picked up recently was that on the 27th of June in 1994, Aerosmith became the first major band to let fans download a full new track free from the internet.
Remember that?
So what do we think about that?
Well, it was the beginning of a very huge change in the music industry, that's for sure. Since I think I can't remember what the percentage is, but it's a huge percentage of music now is either simply listened to on subscription services, or if people do buy it for themselves, then it's all normally nowadays downloaded onto iPods.
I don't think I've ever done it though. Have you done it?
I have done, yes. I'm not a great music buyer in any case, but I have. I mean, it's so convenient if you know that if you know what you want to get. It's far easier to download it, even if and pay for it that way than it is to find a shop selling a CD.
Yeah. I might look into it. I'm sure I will look into it at some stage. I suppose I listen to the radio more than any other way of listening to music, I'd say.
So do I.
Yeah.
I very much so. It's very unusual for me to buy music, but for whatever reason, when I have recently, probably since about the millennium, I've tended to download it rather than buy the CD.
Yeah.
One exception is if I'm at a concert
and
the artist has CDs available, then I always try and buy that if I'm going to buy it at all from the artist, because they get a bigger percentage if they're selling it themselves, and B, they get far more money per CD than they do per download, even if you're buying it from iTunes or whatever. So if you want to support artists, it's definitely worth searching out the physical thing to buy.
There's I think we might have talked about this on the show previously, but there's something called Bandcamp on the last Friday of the month where some artists there's some discounts on what you can buy from artists, so that's good to know about as well.
I think I think at least one Friday in the month Bandcamp doesn't charge the musicians a commission, so everything that you pay goes to the artists themselves, so it's worth looking out for as well, for sure.
The other thing I like about radio nowadays as well is that you can have whole stations just devoted to the 80s or 90s or whatever was your period or kind of themes and stuff. There are so many channels out there, so many online stations on the internet, so it's good to kind of search around and curate your perfect soundtrack or kind of to your life, really. I like that. Yes. Okay, and of course today is the 4th of July, which for our friends in the US and US friends elsewhere in the world is Independence Day.
Happy
a federal
Independence
holiday.
Day.
Yes, so happy Independence Day. And we hope you're having a nice day, whatever you're doing today. Some of the things that are happening around this time of year. Plastic Free July 2022 is from the 1st of July to the 30th of July. And this is one Sweyn picked up. So do you want to chat about that, Sweyn?
Well, it's part of a global movement aimed at avoiding the use of plastic. So basically, we're encouraged to do that. It's just that Plastic Free July gets some focus and allows us to be the solution to plastic pollution, so that we can have cleaner streets, oceans, and beautiful communities. So if you want to be part of Plastic Free July, then refuse to use single-use plastics through July and indeed for the rest of the time. The website provides resources and ideas to help, and there's all sorts of contexts in which plastic arises when it needn't, at home, at work, in school, and even at cafes. So the movement here for Plastic Free July has inspired over 120 million participants in 177 countries, which I really did catch my eye. So making a small change, each of us will collectively make a massive difference around the world. You can choose to refuse single-use plastics in July and beyond. So also the good part of getting involved in this is that there's quite a lot of emphasis on the website about what alternatives there are to plastics, and so that's worth looking at as well. So I don't know, I'm in two minds about this sort of thing. Yes, we should avoid plastic where it's possible, for sure. However, I'd like to see that done by regulation and by industry change, rather than relying too much at this stage on individual actions, because yes, a lot of people will do this, it'll make a difference. I think the time though for relying on consumer choice and individual action is past. We all know what the problem is now. It's not a question of raising awareness or anything like that. And there are plastic bans starting to go into place. Like I think in Scotland it either is or soon will be illegal to give out plastic straws with drinks. I think that's going a bit further, and in the various parts of the UK, it's a well understood problem. So to rely on kind of consumer action and days of and months of action and so on is all very fine. But I'd like to see more action from government to actually tackle this, and from industry to tackle the problem at source.
Yeah, there's still a lot of companies. They sell products and they kind of they brute their environmental credentials and stuff, but the amount of plastic used to wrap things. I was looking at handkerchiefs at the weekend, using them instead of tissues, and so I want to buy some from anywhere that sells them really, but the wrapping that they come in is kind of each handkerchief is wrapped in its individual plastic attachment.
Yes.
It's just
I think that's the nonsense of it. That's the other thing though. I mean, there are I think for some types of food packaging, there are good reasons to use packaging, because the losses you might incur through things being bashed or bruised or going off, the carbon losses from that sort of thing, and the general badness for the environment of food waste. It's a calculation. In some cases, it will be worth using some or maybe what seems like quite a lot of packaging. But the trouble is, the regulations and the systems aren't in place for us to have confidence that that's what's happening. And there is, as you say, obviously in some cases, huge amounts of extra packaging that we don't need to do. I'm going to just opt out. I can hear something happening at the front door, so I will be back in 2 minutes.
Grand, I'll carry on. So another thing that's happening around this time is the Samaritans is running a month-long campaign, Talk to Us 2022, from the 1st to the 31st of July. And on the 24th of July, as part of this month, is Samaritans Awareness Day. Because, as they say, they're here to listen. On this date and throughout July, they'll be running their annual awareness-raising campaign. They're challenging the UK to become better listeners by sharing expert tips on how to be a better listener. And throughout July, Samaritans branches are also holding events throughout the UK and Ireland to raise awareness of the services they offer in their local communities. And they're encouraging people to visit their local branch website to see what they're doing during Talk to Us. And also they're on Facebook and Twitter, so you can look there for details of the campaign. And I can't speak highly enough of the Samaritans. As you know, Sweyn and I raised some money for them in March to their 310,000 steps or whatever.
So you did, yes. Well done.
I didn't do that many, but I did a fair amount. And yeah, I found them, personally in my life, I'm not ashamed to say I've run the Samaritans
Yeah.
when I felt I was struggling a bit, and they've been wonderful. And the website has excellent resources as well, so you don't have to talk to somebody if you don't want to, but they are
That's right.
there. Yeah.
No, it's an amazing organization, and it does a really important job, and it also encourages other. It's a template for other more focused organizations that have sprung up, helplines for various specific things. I think a lot of that activity that goes on in other charities has been inspired really by the Samaritans, who are you might say the original and best, but without wishing to demean the efforts of any others. I think that the whole as it were guaranteed 24/7 service that the Samaritans provide, it's a heck of an undertaking, and it's a very valuable thing to have.
Yeah, and I like the way they're having their awareness day on the 24th of the 7th.
24/7, yes.
To illustrate the 24/7 availability. I think that's very clever. So well done to the comms person who spotted that and went with it. I think the comms are really good as well. With the 310,000 steps in March, they sent out t-shirts. You didn't have to sign up or pay money or anything. You got a free t-shirt. And obviously then I wore that a lot too, and I'm still wearing it to advertise the great service that they provide. So yeah, good on the Samaritans. Okay, so also in July, in fact, around this time next week, is the public launch of the Digital Poverty Alliance report in the UK, what the evidence shows. And this is going to be a talk by Ciara Allman, Paul Finnis, Jen Gracie and Neil McLean. And they're respectively from the Ada Lovelace Institute, Digital Poverty Alliance, also the Digital Poverty Alliance, and the Learning Foundation. And we've had Ciara on the show before, and at this report launch, which was postponed from a previous time because she and another one of the colleagues has COVID, so we wish them well. But they're going to be publicly introducing this landmark report outlining the evidence on digital exclusion in the UK for the first time, as well as their principles for change. They did an interim report in 2021, and this research draws on reports, articles, books, and consultation with key people in and around the sector. So the event next week is going to have introductions from Paul Finnis, the CEO of the Digital Poverty Alliance, Jen Gracie, their head of policy and communications, and the chair of the Learning Foundation, Neil McLean. And this public virtual launch and Q&A promises insightful discussion around a topic shockingly still so prevalent in the 21st century. And there'll also be a chance to put questions to Dr. Allman and the DPA team, as well as hear about the DPA's new policy principles. So we are delighted to see that report, because I've read most of it and I'm still reading it to kind of take in the essentialness of it. But it's been brilliant, and I've been recommending it to a lot of the meetings I've been going to, including the West Midlands Coalition Digital Inclusion subgroups I've been at recently. But I wanted to read some bits from Ciara's opening statement at the 2022 National Digital Conference, which is about the report and the review. She consulted more than 200 sources of evidence on the 5 determinants of digital poverty from academia, the third sector, industry, and government. And the 5 determinants that they have outlined, the alliances outlined, are devices and connectivity, access, capabilities, motivation, and support and participation. And as she says, as you can imagine, these headings encompass quite a wide range of issues and supporting data. And the reason comes down to this, and she's encapsulated in one sentence: digital poverty is at least as much a social issue as it is a technological issue. And I think, being able to boil it down to that encapsulation is really valuable.
I think that's a very good use of the phrase "at least as much."
Yeah, definitely. So she says, we need to know more about people, their day-to-day lives, their hardships, the inequalities they face, and we need to build technologies that take this diversity of experiences and forms of exclusion into account. And really, again, referring back to our beloved founder, that's what he would have said about the work that he was doing. He kind of met people where they were at, recognizing that the day-to-day lives and hardships were, influenced their digital inclusion, and that the work needed to be done around that. So Ciara, in her opening statement, highlighted 3 things about where we need to be looking for the evidence to end digital poverty based on the evidence review. And, very generously, she's going to be making her entire list of source material, including things that aren't cited in the report, available to anybody who wants to look at them. So that's marvelous. And you don't often get that, especially from academia. So she says first, so the three things that she says we need to be looking at for the evidence to end digital poverty. So she says first we need to look beyond the long-standing absolute divide between digital haves and have-nots. And again, just brilliant the way it's all been brought together. You know, she says, she refers to the classic online-offline distinction, but she says instead we need to focus on relative differences and divides, regional divides based on income, education, disability, factors like the reliability of your connection, the speed of your connection, and the privacy of the spaces you have at your disposal to connect also all affect your experience of the digital world. I mean, you know, we both know that, you know, we kind of can move up and down the scale of being connected or not connected, depending on all of these things at different times. You know, it can be if your Wi-Fi goes down, then you're cut off if that's what you're relying on, and that does happen, and speeds can change and all that. So it's all relevant. Secondly, she says digital inequality and therefore digital poverty is becoming a very complex issue in the digital world today because of what scholars call datafication. And this was fascinating, meaning the collection of information about people and the processing of that data, which now underpins most digital services. It's not just about whether someone has an internet connection or an internet-enabled device anymore. It's also about whether enough or too little data about them is being collected and whether data-driven decisions are putting them at greater disadvantage, for instance, in risk scoring for housing or insurance. I mean, you know, it just makes you think. It just you know, I'm trying to bring this to the attention of my data colleagues as well. And yeah, we need to be having these conversations, definitely. And third, she says, and this relates to the second point, we need to explore and address the double-edged sword of inclusion. What do I mean by that? Well, digital poverty doesn't end when people finally get online or have access to a reasonable device. It's not a switch that gets flipped from off to on, and now people will be able to experience the positive outcomes of digitization. People may actually be exposed to more harms due to their digital disadvantage. So we need to include evidence about what those harms are, who is most likely to be affected, and how to mitigate them. So that means building digital technologies and systems that are safe, accessible, and privacy enhancing. And again, you know, these are kind of conversations I'm having with tech companies who need to be thinking about these things, you know, when they're designing the technology that they are designing. You know, we're not saying that those things are bad. We're just saying some thoughtfulness in this area needs to be included. So in summary, she says the evidence we need to take into account in order to tackle digital poverty goes beyond what we've traditionally relied on, statistics on digital connection and skills, and now needs to encompass all the complexities of a data-driven world and how these are embedded in people's social contexts. So brilliant. You know, she writes so well. You know, I've said before to people how I'd recommended that they read her blogs because I think she just covers this so brilliantly. And we are hoping to have her on the show again. We have had her on before, but you know, we send her our best wishes for a speedy recovery, but not too speedy. Don't rush back, Hira. And you know, well done for such a brilliant piece of work, and for all the team. You know, obviously it's not a one-person report, but it's just great to have it on hand. And as I say,
all the best for the launch next Monday.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they did do the launch in the House of Lords for them. So I mean, it's great that they've been reaching kind of those kind of influencers, and so but this is a public event which any of us can attend. So highly recommended. Okay, so we have some stories that we've been picking up along the way, and we'll do as many of them as we can in the rest of the time that we've got left. As I say, we usually have a guest, or often have guests. So if you think you'd make a good guest for the Dr. Tech Show, please do contact us. And we're delighted to hear from anybody who's active, who've, you know, to refer back to the origins of the show, if you've got online for the first time during COVID. We really want to hear your story. If you've been helping other people to get online as well, that's also of interest. Or if there's some other digital topic that you think would be of interest to people who are interested in digital inclusion and online communications, then we'd be very glad to hear from you. So the how to get in touch with us will be on the links on the YouTube program once this is once we finish the program. So all the links will be there. Okay, so this one is from the US, as so many of our stories are from time. Well, a lot of our stories are from time to time, just because we know that things that happen in one part of the world affect what happens in the rest of the world. So, and digital is such a, it's a global thing. So, things that stories from one place should be of interest to our listeners here. So the heading for this one is "Cut Off from the Courthouse: How the Digital Divide Impacts Access to Justice and Civic Engagement," and it's by Samuelson Law, Technology and Public Policy Clinic. And the key findings in this article were that the lack of adequate broadband access, digital devices and digital literacy skills entrenches existing inequalities that civic institutions are working to eliminate. As it's about the criminal justice system, they refer to hearings. They say remote hearings should be optional. In the courts, remote hearings can be effective for ministerial legal hearings and some substantive civil hearings. For civic institutions, remote hearings can increase access, but they can also exclude residents contending with digital access and adoption barriers. Number 3 in their key findings is that deficiency in public awareness of broadband affordability programs or community broadband services ensure that they remain underutilized. Trusted legal service providers who work with residents eligible for broadband affordability programs could be program ambassadors, as they are an overlooked touch point for information. And I think we've talked about affordability services before from some providers in the UK. So that relates. We can see correlation there. Number 4 in these key findings of 5, the lack of trust in government affordability programs can be just as much of a barrier to broadband affordability programs as lack of information. Again, trust is a key thing that we sometimes talk about on the show here. If you're not a trusted source, and we hope that we're a trusted source here, then it can be a barrier to people wanting to take part. And finally, for these list of key findings, mobile internet service and devices are not sufficient for equitable access to courts, legal services, government proceedings, and public benefits. So does that mean they're saying that mobile services don't have all the information, Sweyn? Is that what they're saying there?
I'm not sure. I think it's possible that if you were to use a phone, for example, to connect to the equivalent of a Zoom call for a legal hearing or whatever, if all you have is a phone, then you might not properly be able to see documents that are shared, for example. There might be stuff like that. I'm not sure what the point about mobile internet is about. I mean, from my point of view, if you connect your device to mobile internet, as I am doing now, in fact, just to avoid any BT landline dropouts and so on while we're broadcasting, I don't know what that means, but certainly I think you would need a decent device with a decent screen, or even and to know really how to use it, or to have assistance in using it. If you're going to get the most out of, if you weren't going to be disadvantaged, then during a remote hearing, I guess. It's an interesting one, that though, because it's an easy one to forget when services are being provided online. It's easy to forget the full range of devices that people use to access them, and the fact that some will be better than others at some aspects of the interaction.
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe sometime we get somebody on from a criminal justice viewpoint to tell us how things are going in this country.
There's been a bit of chat about this sort of thing on Twitter amongst some legal people mainly in England. So it is a thing that people all over the world, certainly all over the developed world, are thinking about. Yes, it's cheaper to provide remote services in some cases, but is it fair? That's the big question.
Yeah. And so we come on to the recommendations in this item, and again there's 5. So the first one is invest in adoption as well as access, pointing out that greater access to affordable broadband service offerings and digital skills training must accompany the push for remote judicial and administrative proceedings, civic engagement and government services. Investments in both access and adoption will help to ensure residents can be heard, apply for government services, and stay informed about local emergencies. So yeah, it's fine just to have the thing there, but if nobody's telling you about it, then it's to help you adopt it, then it's it can be not as useful as it might be. Secondly, and this is one we'd certainly heartily endorse on this program, partner with community organizations. It says community government partnerships with local community organizations may help overcome trust barriers that prevent some households from enrolling in broadband affordability and access programs. So yeah, let's hear it for community organizations who, that's big part of their role is to build up those trust relationships with citizens so that they can help them have better lives, really, and that's what it boils down to. Number 3 on this list of recommendations is support the full range of service providers to promote awareness of broadband subsidy programs and digital literacy education initiatives. It's important to partner with and provide resources for public defenders, legal aid officers, and other legal service providers. These are obviously US terms, but we can draw some of them back to the UK and see what they mean over here. These providers can serve as program ambassadors and provide broadband adoption in low-income communities. That support should go along with robust resources for libraries, libraries, schools, senior centres, and other community and anchor institutions. So yeah, we can certainly relate to those. Partner with them provides resources. Yeah, it's recognizing that other people other than the people providing the initial support can be, gateways and help with making services more accessible to other people. So please do that. Number 4 on this list of recommendations, streamline enrollment. Oh, yes. All those filling in pages. I was listening to a comedian this morning saying, he just wants to go to his local cinema to see a film, and he's got to basically give them, his life story nearly to sign up to book tickets online. So yeah, streamlining. We like streamlining. The recommendation is enrolling in broadband subsidy programs should be as easy as possible. Streamlining the application process and establishing a single application for multiple programs will reduce burdens on some residents. Yes, I'm sure you've had the experience, Sweyn, of trying to sign up for something and finding you're having to give far too much information away.
Oh yes, it seems to be that as soon as a registration form appears, you've got to give postcodes and all sorts of stuff, just to get the simplest of service underway.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one final recommendation is support local solutions. Broadband funding should support innovative municipal and community-based initiatives to expand access. And they're referring to municipal mesh networks and hotspot programs. They expand broadband access for communities who are underserved by traditional providers and may not be able to afford broadband, even with the assistance of subsidy programs. Flexible funding programs and local best practices are 2 strategies that can empower communities to tackle persistent digital divides. Yeah, so it's important to have these in places where people don't have to pay. I mean, far too many times I've heard anecdotally that job centres and other providers are saying to people, "Oh, use the broadband in your local McDonald's." Well, that's fine, but they're not a public service, and they're perfectly entitled to say to you, "I'm sorry, but you have to buy something if you want to use our Wi-Fi or use our facilities." And they can make it more awkward for people, even if that isn't said to people. They can feel bad, and it's a public place, people can overhear your private, conversations stuff. So it's not ideal at all. So yes, public support public and community-based initiatives to make it possible.
It's really interesting to see this report go into such detail about how to provide online access when its focus is on one particular service. It shows that study has looked really well at what all the underpinning requirements are for providing, in this case, access to the courthouse, as they say.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show the depth of analysis and the depth of thinking through and the reliance that remote and online services place on, and the assumptions that are made about how people can possibly access them, which are not necessarily valid as that report details, and lots of reasons why, and lots of ways to get it right as well. So it's a good one.
Yeah, it is a really good one. I think it's one Ciara would enjoy in her list of evidence, and I hope that some of the things we've covered have been useful to her in her research. Okay, the next one is about Virgin Media O2's Better Connections plan, and this was one we picked up from Twitter, and just an excerpt from the report that is linked, or the article is linked to this tweet. The Do One Thing campaign, with 59% of Generation Z saying they need help to live greener lives. Virgin Media's O2 Do One Thing campaign aims to empower everyone to make sustainable choices to help protect the planet. And this includes recycling unwanted tech with O2 Recycle and donating devices via community calling, to using the eco rating system and buying like new secondhand smartphones and tablets. So some good recommendations there from it's a private sector provider, but they're doing a number of things to help people to be connected. So
yeah,
yay to them.
I like the buy like new rather than buying actual new stuff. That's a great way of saving money as well as saving resources.
Yeah. Do you have? I mean, actually, I'm interested on Orkney, Sweyn. Do you have places where people can buy like new devices or buy them online? Maybe
there are a couple of local businesses who have small collections at most times of Apple and other devices, which they've kind of part exchanged or have just taken a spot from people, and they'll refurbish them and make them available for much less than you can buy a new one.
Yeah.
Granted, doesn't have the latest camera, but it's still got very good camera compared to anything that you're going to get otherwise. So yeah, I mean, I actually can't remember whether my current phone is an as new or a new one. I think this one is new because I wanted something particular in the camera setup. But I certainly always check out whether or not I can get either an old model that's new or a second-hand model that's, as it were, good enough for what I want to do.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, I with the digital literacy project at North East Community Partnership, we do give advice to people about where to buy as new, and there are other local charitable schemes like New Starts in Rubery who can help people get an as new device, or
I think it's important when buying as new, unless you really know what you're doing. I think it's really important to buy from somewhere that you trust.
Yeah.
Rather than just a private listing on eBay or something. I mean, you can take a chance on that; it might work, but especially if you're unless you're really confident about how to recondition things, how to reset devices and all of that sort of thing, I think it's worth the little bit extra you pay to buy from a trusted source, whether it's an online source or whether it's a shop locally or whatever.
Yeah. Good to know. Okay, and another article from the US. The headline is "Fidium Fiber bringing gigabit speeds to nearly 12,000 homes in southern Vermont CUD, including 400 unserved homes." And this says that a construction is underway in Bennington County in Vermont, and before autumn, 12,000 Vermont homes will have access to gig speed internet from Fidium Fiber, which is a consumer internet service from Consolidated Communications. They're quoted on NASDAQ. Fidium boasts symmetrical, that is, same upload and download speeds. Wow, they're 10 times faster than the national average. And this new build is part of Consolidated's fiber expansion plan to deliver fiber internet services to 200,000 Vermont homes by the end of 2025. And the president of Consumer and Small Business for Consolidated, Eric Garr, says super fast internet access is a game changer for communities, and we're committed to bringing fiber internet to as many homes as possible in Vermont, and are grateful for the partnership of the Southern Vermont CUD for making this vision a reality. We are so excited to bring Fidium Fibre Internet to Bennington County and be part of the future of this forward-thinking community. Well, imagine symmetrical, same upload and download speeds, as long as they're fast. That sounds amazing. I haven't heard of that anywhere before.
Oh well, I think our good friends at Barn provide that.
Okay.
I think so. It's a thing that you can do if you're really throwing bandwidth at the problem, as it were, and that's Barn's big boast in rural Lancashire mainly. That if you're using fibre, you have so much bandwidth available that you just don't need to put any limits on what customers can use. I don't think this Vermont project is probably quite as community based, probably isn't quite as fast speeds either as Barn in Lancashire, which is very much kind of do it by the community, do it yourself approach. But it's a good example of what needs to be done in each community, in each nation, and each marketplace really around the world. If we want to give people access to decent fibre, $70 a month, which is probably about £55, £60 maybe, and it's probably on the high side compared to some of the deals you can get in the UK, but the speeds will be much faster, I think, than most people can get nowadays. Even the new fibre to the cabinet services, probably this service will probably be faster and more reliable than that.
And are we able to explain why not everywhere has fibre yet, Sweyn?
I think it's just purely down to the costs of providing fibre to everyone's home, as opposed to providing fibre to cabinets, which then connect homes by copper. The copper is already there, so in a sense it's a free, they can use it free, and all they need to do is put fibre to the last point where all the copper diverges to individual homes. That's why it goes in a cabinet on the street. Now, Barn and other community projects are able to do fibre to the premises, in other words, to homes directly, all the way to homes and businesses, partly because they have innovative and low-cost ways, some of them very exciting and interesting ways of getting all the digging and all the cabling done, which, if it was done by engineers and contractors, would cost an absolute fortune comparatively. And that is why it's only in some very limited places, although it is increasing slightly nowadays. It's why it hasn't yet happened in across the board in the UK anyway. There's all sorts of political and commercial factors you could argue about one way and another. The basic fact is, since BT Openreach and perhaps Virgin Media own a huge proportion of the existing infrastructure, then they are in a position to dictate how much they want to spend on providing higher speeds. And so far, the cost benefit analysis from their perspective has not really stacked up for fibre to people's homes. Whereas if in community-based projects like Barn, they can get themselves organised to avoid an awful lot of the costs. Therefore, and if you have a community that's strong enough and willing enough and gung-ho enough to actually, supervise trench digging and fibre terminating and all that stuff, then you can go for it. That's where we are.
Okay, well, it's good to understand that a bit better. It's the kind of terminology that sometimes needs a bit of explaining. But thanks for that. Okay, so the next item was about the UK digital strategy, which was launched on the 13th of June 2022, And this has received various responses from various people. And anyway, the document itself was launched by the Minister for Tech and the Digital Economy, Chris Philp, and other ministers from the other nations also made speeches about the launch of this strategy. And Chris kind of said that digital technology has transformed our lives and will continue to do so. UK's economic future, jobs, wage levels, prosperity, national security, cost of living, productivity, ability to compete globally, and our geopolitical standing in the world are all reliant on continued and growing success in digital technology. And he says that's why the UK must strengthen its position as a global science and tech superpower. And he points out that the UK starts with many advantages, critical building blocks of the digital economy, from superfast internet access across the UK to cybersecurity capabilities are already in place, with UK universities leading the world in fundamental and applied science. More tech unicorns, that's people who are doing amazing things right ahead of any other posse. More tech unicorns than any other European country, more than France and Germany combined. And he says in 2021, a new UK unicorn was minted every 11.5 days based on data from company tracking business Dealroom. There's more private capital flow into the UK tech last year than any other European country, 27.4 billion, around double the level of second place Germany and more than triple the level of France in third place. So some competition going on there. And he says these represent thousands of high-skilled, high-paid new jobs right across the UK in emerging fields such as artificial intelligence, advanced semiconductor design, and quantum computing. The UK is a world leader, and our global network of partners and allies provide the foundation to act as a force for digital good on the world stage. As the minister, obviously, he wants us to go further and go faster, and the UK should celebrate the success of our digital businesses and champion global leadership in areas such as fintech. So so far so good, but it's all much more about business than community, which tends to be the focus of our discussions more. So it's good for business, but is it good for the rest of the country?
Yeah, I mean, it's a digital strategy for business, as you say. There's very little in it which addresses digital inclusion or exclusion or providing services that are required by everyone. I mean, it's if you compare it to the digital strategy that the Scottish government released, was just this year? No, it was last year. Sorry, it was last year. Then the business and the innovation and the investment is one plank of that strategy for sure. But I think what you could criticize the English, with the UK or English digital strategy for really focusing too much on that economic and industrial side and not really providing a focus for the digital inclusion and the other things that we usually talk about on this program.
Yeah. I mean, there is one section on lifelong digital skills in public libraries, which I wanted to flag up, which was from section 3.4, and it does say that public libraries play an important and inclusive role in making sure everyone can access the digital economy. 2,900 public libraries in England offer free Wi-Fi, computers, and other technology, along with some digital support. And almost a third of people visit their local library, and nearly 80% of libraries have reported seeing a constant or increasing volume of requests for digital skills support. And it acknowledges that libraries also help to tackle the combined barriers of skills, confidence, and motivation by offering skills training and user support. Well, a lot of them do, but a lot of them, because I come across them in my work, and aside from this program, and they're saying they sometimes struggle with being able to provide that level of support, because the level of support that's needed, because they have so many other calls on their time. So we're able to run digital drop-in sessions from the Northfield Community Partnership Digital Literacy Project to 2 local libraries, but there's like so many other libraries in Birmingham that aren't benefiting from that. And so while libraries are good, they're not getting the support that they would need to provide better services to the community. So if the government wants to increase digital literacy and digital inclusion in kind of the general community, it could do a lot worse than funding support through public libraries, because they have the trust of the people. You don't have to spend any money when you go there. It's free. If you're a local citizen, you sign up. Membership is free, as far as I know, for every library, every public library. So it's a no-brainer to me that they should take advantage of that opportunity. So yay for libraries, and let's see more support there. Okay, we've got 15 minutes left, and there are a few more stories to cover. And this is the next set of stories is again going back to the US, but we know that what happens in the US will affect the rest of the world. And this is about the Roe v. Wade decision that was recently overturned by the legal in
the Supreme Court.
In the US, and this is about abortion and abortion rights. So our kind of angle is looking at obviously the digital experience and the kind of correlation between this decision and things that happen in a digital world. So this first article is an opinion by Catherine Yao and Megan Rani on the 16th of June on CNN.com. And the headline is Opinion, the Danger of Period Tracking Apps in a Post-Roe World. In the course of this article, they say the very first question asked of new users of Flow, which is a popular period tracking app, is, are you pregnant? And people eager to begin using the app likely don't think too hard before answering that question, but they should, say the writers. As we face a likely future, this was before the decision was made by the Supreme Court, so just bear that in mind. So at the time they were saying, as we face a likely future in which Roe v. Wade will be struck down by the Supreme Court, privacy experts and lay consumers alike are concerned that this and other digital data gathered by period tracking apps could be used to prosecute women who seek or have abortions. They go on to say most of the best known period tracking apps collect data on intimate details ranging from users' menstruation cycles to their sex lives to their medication usage. And in 2020, Privacy International, a nonprofit advocacy group, asked 5 period tracking apps for the data that had been collected on a PI employee who volunteered to use the apps for the project. One app was found to store answers to the most intimate questions on the company's server, such as what type of relationship do you have at present? And another was noted to have collected approximate location data whenever the user interacted with the app. Other independent evaluations have had similar findings. The writers say this stored information is rarely under your control. Most digital health apps, including period tracking apps, are exempt from the federal health information privacy laws that govern healthcare providers. Therefore, these apps have essentially free rein in who they share your health data with, as long as they inform you of their privacy policies. And I don't know about you, Sweyn, but I often don't want to give my life away by reading pages and pages of privacy policies. I'm sure I'm not the only one. So the moral of this kind of article is know what you're using. Before you sign up for an app, read the privacy policies carefully using non-profit resources such as the Electronic Frontier Foundation to help inform yourself. Consider creating an anonymous email when you sign up for the app. And that's not illegal. Anybody can have as many email addresses as they want. If possible, choose an app that stores all your data on your phone, which provides a much higher level of privacy, they say. And if you have any doubt about the privacy of your data on the app you're using, you may want to consider going back to what women did 15 years ago, track your period with paper and pencil. So I thought that was a useful one for us to refer to, Sweyn, as is about communication and digital privacy and what people are entitled to.
Yeah, it's a good example of one of the things in the digital poverty. In Keir Allman's remarks about the increased risks and dangers and downsides to increased information gathering, because I think that the main suggestion here is that this, if you are using these apps, then, and there's any question about whether or not you have been trying to access abortion services, then this would then become evidence which law enforcement could discover, and get a court order to see and to try and to kind of suggest what your behaviors have been compared to what the data that you provided on these apps. And it's just a really good example of how all the information that you give to these apps is stored somewhere. And if it can be, I'm actually not convinced that anonymous email addresses would be enough of a safeguard, because depending on how much effort law enforcement people wanted to put into finding out what you've been doing, then your location data and your other metadata that they can match up with the stuff that's stored on these apps, they could probably be used to match together enough information to find out who was who in any case. So it's a well, in my opinion, it's a very bad situation that the judgment has put women in the US in, especially in more conservative states. But this is just a really good example of how you might cause difficulties for yourself that you can't really foresee when you start to use these apps.
Yeah. So in good faith, people will share information and then not think about where it's gone. I mean, I'm pleased to see that this article will be aimed at a certain demographic, but they're also letting people know about organizations like Privacy International and the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and I think it's great to be letting people know that those organizations exist, and I think it might bring a new audience to them, which is
yes,
no bad thing.
It's just one stark, specific example of the general message that those privacy organizations tried to put forward all the time. You just cannot assume that you're in control of information that you give away to apps and websites. You just
yeah. So another article, which is this one from the BBC, also about this same issue. The heading is "Period Tracking Apps Warning Over Roe v. Wade Case," and this was on the 7th of May. And this was actually referring to the Electronic Frontier Foundation, saying that women using period tracking apps must ensure they know how their data is being used, because the overturning of the legal ruling would make abortion illegal in 22 states. It says more information than we had before. And yeah, like you said, there's fears menstrual tracking apps could be used to punish those seeking a termination, because some of these apps share data with third parties. It's not clear yet what the apps do with the data, but some of the information is fed back to the big tech companies like Google, Meta, and Amazon. And the senior staff technologist at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, Cooper Quinton, told the BBC, "We strongly suggest that the developers of period tracking apps start thinking about the amount of data they're storing about their customers, and especially the ways the data could one day be used or misused in the future to cause harm or be a tool of surveillance. Anyone working with user data, especially in the reproductive health space right now, should be thinking about what they can do to minimize the amount of data they collect and hold, and the length of time they hold that data." And there's an online support group called Online Abortion Resource Squad, and on social media platform Reddit. And Rhiannon Lewis from this group told the BBC it has seen a surge in traffic in the group / abortion page since the leak of the decision at the start of the week, which was, I'll say, back in May. Typically, she said this page averages more than 500,000 page views per month from about 20 to 30,000 unique visitors. But this daily unique visitor count doubled recently. And these women are not asking about privacy concerns. Most are asking about how to access a clinic, which resources they need, and legal information. So this online group is directing people who have digital privacy questions around abortion to the Digital Defence Fund, as this is their speciality. So it's good to see the network working to refer people on to more useful resources. But it's also startling and horrifying, really, to see the risks that people might be taking, and we want to discourage abuse of data, and we want to for people to be safe when they're online. It comes back to that, doesn't it, Sweyn? That's the kind of the basic premise that we have been promoting all along.
There's a fascinating and frightening picture on that website, on the BBC article, which is just showing all the different ways in which data that you would just accrete through the normal use of your phone, how it could be used as evidence of what you've been doing, particularly if you have tried to access abortion services in a state where that is now apparently illegal, and it covers all sorts of things like receipt email payments from clinics. Period tracking apps are mentioned. There's your search history, which might be saved in your phone. There's payment history from banking applications, and there's various and there's all the information about where you've been, all the location information on your phone as well. And this is why I'm saying that I'm not completely sure that simply using an anonymous email account would necessarily be enough, because if it got to the stage where law enforcement were allowed to search through the data that even that you've got on your own phone, they could find that very useful in prosecuting people for things that you just would never imagine.
And that leads us on exactly to the next article, which is published in the Washington Post on the 4th of May and updated on the 24th of June. And the headline was, "For people seeking abortions, digital privacy is suddenly critical. Internet searches, visits to clinics, and period tracking apps leave digital trails." So it's just, I mean, it does repeat some of what's been said, but I think it was important to show how, how across there were several references to this, and we needed to pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of I must admit, I'm a bit of an addict of the corny American true crime programs. I watch far too many of them to be actually healthy. But when you look at the things that law enforcement agencies are able to use to solve serious crimes, then all of this stuff is routinely relied on in murder cases and in kidnapping cases and all that sort of thing. And it's only a question of political or law enforcement will, really, that such efforts are not put into uncovering what most of us would think are much lesser crimes. And since opinion about how serious a matter abortion is or should be is so fiercely divided, it doesn't take a great leap of imagination to see that, at least in some states, it could be from a law enforcement point of view become a kind of priority to look into cases where they suspect abortions might have been attempted or undertaken, and to treat them like murder cases, in which case they'll be throwing all the forensic techniques at the online behavior of everyone involved. So it is quite a serious and worrying thing.
And and part of this article from the Washington Post does say that even before this all kind of has just happened, Google for one reported that in the first half of 2021, it received more than 40,000 subpoenas and search warrants in the United States. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah.
If they're already asking for it, then they'll ask for it even more with this.
And I think, where people are trying to solve serious crimes, murder, rape, whatever, I don't think anybody has any problem with that.
No,
probably.
This is people's private and personal business. Nobody needs to know.
It's just a question of who gets to decide which cases or what behavior is suspicious or illegal, and who gets to decide how much effort goes into actually uncovering what evidence about those things. It must be very disturbing times for a lot of people in the US. I think.
And just one last this will have to be our last story before we close the show. But again, this was a tweet from Kevin Collier on the 24th of June. He says the much bigger concern is unsecured, unencrypted communications and stored search history. That some abortion providers are rushing to take precautions to guard their communications and their patients' data, fearing that the information could be used in future prosecutions. Others are already a step ahead of them. Maya Raven, the Director of Policy at Reproductive Health Services, a clinic in Montgomery, Alabama, said her clinic runs almost exclusively on paper. Its strategy, she said, is meant to ensure patient privacy. I mean, it sounds archaic, but it's, obviously it's what they felt they need to do. She says there's literally not a computer in that clinic unless I bring my laptop from home in. And other employees at women's clinics in the US who spoke with NBC News for this, kind of series of tweets, says they are taking a variety of precautions, from using unencrypted messaging apps to choosing Zoom meetings and phone calls over emails and texts in an effort to leave less of an electronic paper trail. So, it sounds like it's going backwards, but if that's what has to be done to protect people's privacy, then I'm sorry, we just have to do that for now.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm aware of some people who have got to this point in their own thinking, not just about abortion, but about general privacy or risk to themselves, and who will insist on any conversations beyond the very mundane, any significant conversations being done on the Signal app, which is encrypted from device from end to end. And this is just another reminder that if you're anxious about the privacy of your data, and I think we probably in the end all should be, then these are the sorts of things that you need to do. And it's a great thread that I had forgotten. I think most of what I was waffling on about just before you brought that up was actually probably based on my reading of this earlier.
Good. Good. That's very useful.
Take care what you're doing online. The trouble is that this message will not get out to absolutely everybody, and as usual, we might imagine that some of the most vulnerable in society will be at the most risk from this sort of thing, perhaps because that's how it tends to work.
Yeah. Well, we hope our people who are listening to us can share this with others, and please do come and talk to us about your experiences, because we overall believe that being online is a good thing and helps communication, but we don't want to make anybody's life more dangerous or risky or unprivate. You're entitled to a private life online and offline, so please take care of yourselves. So thanks very much for today, Sweyn. Another good show, and let's just next week we are off because we're both busy doing other things. I'm going to the Centre for Alternative Technology in Machynlleth with the Civic Square Donut Economics crew, so I'm looking forward to that. But we will be back for 2 shows in the rest of July, 18th and 25th, and then we're off for a month in August. We have our what's become our annual factory month, where we don't do shows in August. So I hope you can join us for one of the shows, other shows in July. And if not, we'll see you hopefully in September. And so have a good week, have a good month. Thanks very much. Bye now.
Thank you.